Hi, here we are once again, finishing off that login and also doing visibility today. We're in the last database we were working in. Just want a little bit of a review. Currently what we have is a macro that will log a user in and check their permission levels, and actually not their permission levels, it'll check their username and password. What we're going to do today is talk about permission levels and do another macro that will check those. Just to take you through what I've got in the document, there's a document on Canvas called Logging Out and Cleaning House, and we're going to start there. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to do something fun with that temp variable that we set. Remember that after we logged in, the very first then action was to set temp var to see user, so that we knew we would carry that username with us throughout the entire database, wherever we needed to use it. It's a lot simpler to use than trying to go dig up the contents of a login box, you'll see. In fact, let's do one right now. In your design view of nav main menu, I'm assuming that you're there, I'm going to go in and find a text box control. I'm using a text box control because those can be bound to calculations or set equal to things, unlike a label which just contains text. I'm going to delete the label and I'm going to type in the following string. Equals, and that's not a string actually, it's an expression, equals, and then in quotes, welcome, comma, space, quote, and then I'm going to concatenate to that the temp variable, and you do that by putting in brackets temp vars, which is the class of thing that this is, temp vars, exclamation point, and then the name of the temp variable, which is C user. And let's hope I don't lose my voice again. There we go. Now, as we do this, I'm going to clean that up a little bit. As we do this, you should be able to note that this will appear, or should appear, in the form as a welcome message. So I'm going to save and go ahead and take a look at that. There we go. Alright, so right now I'm able to look at that and see, hey, there's my name. One thing I also want to kind of mention to you too is, notice I can click in there and do stuff to it. This isn't on the paper, but it's always a good thing to know. If you go back to Design View and you select that control, go over to the properties and go to the data tab. On the data tab, you can see that there are things you can do to protect the data, and you can do this on all your forms for various things that you wouldn't want the user to change. So if I enable it, they can get in it. If it's locked, they can't change anything. They can't get in it, they can't change anything. You can generally just do both, and it'll just be visible, and that's pretty much it. So if you look at that, you can see that I can't click in it, I can't do anything to it like I could before. Alright, let's return to Design View, and let's fix some things that we need to do to finish up the login system. First, we needed to edit AutoExec. I'm just going to bring you down to the AutoExec macro. Go to Design View. And what you should know is that the only thing you need to tell it to do now is open the login form. Okay, so you should have a form named login or FRM login, excuse me, that you are going to give the user when they first open the database, and that's about it. And you're going to open it in dialog mode. because that's going to disallow interaction with anything else in the database until that form is closed. Second, we want to actually log the person out. Now, one of the reasons that we need to do this is because their name is still going to be in current user when they're logged in. Look at that. I'm in there 3 times because I logged in 3 times. Now, we don't want that to happen. We want to keep that at a person at a time, and we don't want to store data in here. So what we're going to have to do is create a query that gets rid of that data every time a user logs out. Okay? So let's create query. We're going to take current user and add it. Add the field current user. And we're going to make it a delete query. And that's about it. That's all we need to do. So let's go ahead and save it. I'm not even going to run it right now. And we're going to call this QRY logout. And OK. Now, running the query should basically log someone out. In other words, they're no longer in the database and things shouldn't be able to work for them. So what we want to do is we want to actually create a macro, and we're going to use that macro to allow a user to log him or herself out. And we're going to put that on the main form. So let's go to create macro and comment this macro appropriately. And I'm going to just list what this macro is going to do. This macro will excuse me, turn warnings off, delete the current user by running query logout, and then it will set the warnings on, and then close the main menu and relaunch the login form. Okay. And I'll put the date in because, you know, that's important. So let's get started on that. Okay, the very first thing is we're going to set our warnings off. Now remember, there are all actions in our action catalog. We're going to need those in order to set those warnings to be off. So when we run the delete query, we don't want to warn the user they're about to delete X number of rows. So we're going to go in here, set warnings, no. Okay, so we're going to leave that alone. The very next step is we're going to open a query. So type in open query or open queue. And that query is going to be query logout. And the view or data mode does not matter here. We're just going to keep going. The very next action is we're going to set the warnings back on. This time we're going to change that to a yes. And then after that, we're going to make sure that we close the current window. This button is going to be on the main menu, so I don't have to worry about actually specifying anything. Remember, and I've said this 3 or 4 times, this particular action will work on any object that you're running it from. And if you want to run an object that it isn't on, then you have to specify what object you want to close. So we're going to close window, and then we're going to open form login as our very last step. So that gives another person a chance to log in if they need to. Okay. All right. There we go. So that's good. We've got this macro, and let's name it, save it, and name it MCR log out. Now, because we didn't run the query before, we can now test this. If you want to single step it, you can do so, but you don't have to. I'm going to show you. Run, it's running the macro logout. Warnings are not on. Then I'm doing a query. Which query? Logout. Step again, and the warnings come back on. Step again, and I'm going to close the current window. Step again, and ouch, sorry. And then we're going to open the login form. Okay. Notice it closed my macro window because that was what I was running it from and not the main menu. So we'll solve that by getting the button on here. So go ahead and close that. That's saved. It runs perfectly. And let's add a button from Design tab, Control Group. We want a button. And we're going to call this the logout button. We're just going to go to Miscellaneous, Run Macro, and MCR Logout, and then click Next. And I'm going to be specific that we're going to log out user. And finish. I'm going to put this back down here. Next to all the exit stuff that we've got going on here. So a person can log out, or they can actually exit the database. Now, that being said, I'd actually like to do another edit to the login system, yet another piece. If you haven't done this, I'm just going to go over it again. I want to go to Design View of that. See, I've got this login button here, but I don't give the person an exit opportunity, okay? There are a couple of things that are problematic with our login system. One of them is I don't give them a way out. The only thing that they can do is close the actual form window. I want to give them a cancel option, and that cancel option takes them right out of the database. And we want that to happen because we don't want them to close stuff and then go messing around. So one more button, and this is going to be the application action in the button wizard, and we're going to do quit application. We're going to call it cancel. We don't want to tell them they're going to be shot out of the database. We're just going to tell them they're canceling, and then finish. Okay. There we go. All right, so now that that's in place, we're in good shape. We'll talk a little bit more about other things like this. We'll talk about that later, but for right now, this should work. We should be in good shape here. All right. Now, the next step in all this, once you're clear with that, is the bottom of page 1 on the document, visibility based on user permissions. Now, this is the cool thing. We give people permissions, and so let's utilize those permissions by at least setting some visibility. And what that means is if you're an admin, you'll see stuff, and if you're not an admin, you won't. Okay, so we're going to assume, we're going to make an assumption here that anybody that logs in should just by default not see certain things. So we're going to take that through step by step on how to do this. First, you're in Design View of your main menu. You'll notice here I've got this little group here. I've got some things here that didn't appear in our original database. I just kind of want to show you what these are. I have a banking form, and I just want to show you that real quick. I haven't done anything to it except put in a web control that takes me out to a bank. So theoretically, I could go in here and directly interact with a bank as if this were a web browser. So that's kind of a cool thing. I'll show you what that looks like. There it is. And I could go anywhere I wanted to with this. And it's simply, is it that one? That one. Okay. So I don't want people to be able to go to my bank account right away. I want to be the only one to do that. I also don't want to run the new imports. Remember, the new imports was such a beautiful, seamless process that all I needed to do was punch that button and I did it. Okay, so I don't want to be able to let somebody try to do that either. So what I've done is I've created a little area here, and I put some objects in here, and I'm just going to make all of these guys not appear to most people. To do that, I'm going to select them, and I'm going to go over to the property sheet. And see, I'm just going to hit all because we need all of those right here. I'm going to, make sure that I've named the object, and I'm going to set the property to visible no. Okay. Every object that you want to make visible, or invisible or visible again, or turn on and off in that way, you need to name. So that first one was LBL admin only. The second one is box admin. And I don't want that to be visible. And this button here is CMD Open Banking Admin. And I don't want that to be visible. And this third one, Import New Products, is CMD Import Products. And I don't want that to be visible. Okay, so I've done that for each and every one, and I've also actually listed that at the top of page 2 what they should be called. And if you didn't make them, in other words, if you're working with a database that didn't have them, these are the controls. They're the label control here, the box control here, and then our two buttons. Okay, so just so that you know what they are. Additionally, I just want to point out too that you can take and select all of these at once and set the visible property as well. So you can do it one at a time. I wanted to do it that way because I wanted you to make sure that they were named correctly. And you can set the visible property all at once. Cool. Alright, now, what this will do is when I open this database up, these should not show. I'm hoping. Oh, look, I didn't even have to open it up. There it is. These should not show. And I'm actually seeing another problem. I think I made something invisible that I shouldn't have. So close this database actually was set to visible no. So we're going to make that visible yes again. So yes, always check your work. Excuse me. Alright, I'm going to hurry through this because I feel like my voice is going to go again. Let's continue with this. Once we get that set up, we just need to start a new macro. So I'm going to go do that with create and then a new macro. And I'm going to call this macro, I'm going to go ahead and save it so we can name it. I'm going to call this MCR admin view and click OK. I'm going to comment and say exactly what this thing does. This macro will display certain controls based on privilege level. Another DLOOKUP, yay! There we go. Okay. So our very, very, very first step here is, if you look at the bottom of page 2, is check for privilege level, okay? But this time we're going to look, and you'll see in the comment that I didn't bother to type all the way in. The comment is actually going to use the variable that we set and tested in that form. So we're going to go in here and start an if. And the if statement will, of course, be the DLOOKUP, so you can go ahead and start typing that in. DLOOKUP, quote, bracket, we're going to look up privilege level, bracket, quote, comma, in the domain, quote, bracket, TBL user, and then remember that fun part that we had the last time? Well, this isn't so bad now. Now it gets a little bit less crazy because we're going to use that global variable, and that's going to ease things up quite a bit. So quote for the entire condition argument, excuse me, and that's going to be username equals, and notice I'm not doing anything else here, just normal old expression here, temp vars, as we did on the form, exclamation mark, and then C user. Okay? Then we close that off, close off the DLOOKUP, and the result of the DLOOKUP, if it's admin, then, there's our then statement right here. Excuse me, please. We're going to add an action. Okay? If that happens, then we're going to do some stuff. Page 3. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure that form gets opened. And then we're going to set values. Okay? So, make sure you show all actions. One of the things that we're going to do is we're setting values again. And just take a look down the road here. The value, this gets kind of funny. We have to go in and then we have to do things with it, like specify a really, really long string, okay? And that really, really long string is problematic because it requires typing. So what we're going to do, and I'm going to show this to you several times here on how to do this, we're going to use something called the builder, the expression builder, to get there. But it's going to be funny because you have to erase some stuff. It's not exact. Okay, so you're going to pay attention really closely when we do this. Okay, so we're on page 3. Okay, we're doing the privilege level. We're going to add a new action, set value, and then item. There's our problem. What do we want to set that on? So I'm going to hop over here to the right and invoke the builder. I've got a big picture of this on your instructions, but I'm going to make this a little bit bigger just to show you. It's a matter of double-clicking and finding what you're looking for. Now remember, we named these, so that's what we're going to be looking for. So we're going to look for our database, forms, and I've got that form open, so I'm just going to click Loaded Form, so I only have the one thing to look for. Nav main menu, and then I'm going to go find the thing I want to make visible. So I've got, let's see, there it is. There's Open Banking Admin right there. And so I'm going to click that, and then if I go over here, all the way down to the visible property down here, I'm going to double click that. Okay. Now if you had double clicked this, you would have seen all of this in here already, and then went down and double clicked this, you wouldn't see this. You'd see 2 strings. What you only want to see is this one string. Okay. Let me demonstrate what it would look like if you had not done it that way. If I had gone here and done that, and then gone over here and chosen my property, see what happens? I get both. So just make sure that you don't double click the expression category before you double click the value, the expression value. Okay, so click OK, and my expression should be yes. Oops. Okay, so that will turn that on. Okay, so we're going to keep doing that. We'll do that until it's all done, until we've got all 4 of our objects visible, and then we're done. Okay, so keep going. We want set value again, item. I'm going to do the other button on this one this time. Database, forms, loaded forms. In the nav main menu, I'm going to do CMD import products, click it once, and double click visible. OK. And yes. Third action, set value. And then search for it. And do the box. Oh, look what I did. Go down to visible. OK. And yes. And the last one will be that label that we did. And you can do this for anything, of course. Now that you know how to do it for these objects, you can do it for anything. Label, 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 label. There it is. One click, double click. Okay. And we're done. Okay. There's no else necessary. If it's admin, then they're going to do all this value setting. Otherwise, we are done. So go ahead and save this, and I'll show you what to do next. Now, the problem that we have here is we need to get this to run somehow. And maybe really early in the course, I may have alluded to another tab on the properties, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually use the events tab, which we haven't really done yet. Notice the events tab is, depending on what's selected, is a little bit different. But when you've got the whole form selected or different objects selected, you have possible things that can always happen. Like you'll notice that open banking and financials right now, that has an embedded macro in it because we're opening a form. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do an event for the entire form, and it's going to be on load. So when this form opens, with any luck, we'll have all of those things invisible unless we're admin, and then it will be, sorry, didn't mean to do that, then it will be visible if we're admin. So what we're going to do is make MCR admin view the macro that we want to run on load. Okay? So, you're good. Save it. And now the acid test here is to save it and close it. So to recap, you've created a macro that tests for the person's privilege level. If they're admin, then we're going to set the visible properties on all those things to yes. If they're not admin, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to load the form. Okay? And that is what we're doing with setting visibility. All right. Make sure you test this. If you have any trouble at all, email me with questions. I'm getting better, I promise, and I'll get back to your emails as soon as possible. You I'm going to extend the reset, the password reset. I see a lot of you have turned it in already. That's great. I'm still going to extend it because I feel like you might need a little bit more time to look through this stuff. And I appreciate your patience for putting up with my sickness this week. Hope this was helpful, and I will definitely see you on Tuesday.